One act of kindness toward a fallen stranger had brought 100 menacing bikers to Emma's failing family farm at dawn. Everything she had left in the world, her land, her heritage, perhaps even her life, now hung in the balance. The choice that had seemed so simple in the storm's darkness now threatened to cost her everything. The entire horizon was filled with leather and chrome. "And I knew this moment would change our lives forever," Emma whispered, her breath fogging the window as the bikers surrounded her modest farmhouse. "Hi everyone. Welcome to In the Heartlight. Let's get started." Three days earlier, Emma had risen before the sun as she always did. At 32, her face carried the weathered look of someone who spent most of her life outdoors. Her hands, calloused and strong, moved with practiced efficiency as she fed the chickens and checked on her small herd of dairy cows. The Davis family farm, 60 acres of Nebraska soil that had been in her family for 4 generations, was all Emma had ever known, and all she ever wanted to know. "Morning, old girl," she murmured to Bessie, her oldest cow, as she ran a gentle hand down her flank. "Another day, another dollar, though the bank might disagree with us on that one." The letter had arrived yesterday. Its official letterhead sending a chill through Emma's body despite the summer heat. Final notice of foreclosure proceedings. The drought had hit everyone hard. But 3 consecutive years of poor harvests had left Emma with nothing but mounting debt and dwindling options. Inside the modest farmhouse, Emma paused at the kitchen table, her grandmother's handwritten recipe book open beside a collection of glass jars filled with dried herbs and tinctures. The knowledge of natural remedies had passed from mother to daughter for generations in her family. Her fingers traced her grandmother's elegant script, detailing a poultice for sprains and deep bruises. In town, folks still occasionally stopped by with ailments that modern medicine couldn't seem to fix, though those visits had become rarer as the years passed. The kitchen, like the rest of the house, was simple but meticulously clean. Photographs lined the walls. Her parents on their wedding day, Emma as a child riding on her father's shoulders during harvest. The entire Davis family gathered around the table for Christmas dinner the year before the accident that took her parents. Now it was just Emma, alone with the land and the memories it held. Sheriff Morgan's cruiser kicked up dust as it rolled up the driveway later that morning. Emma wiped her hands on her jeans and met him on the porch. "Morning, Sheriff. Coffee?" "No time today, Emma," he said, hat in hand. "Just checking to make sure you're still coming to the town meeting tonight. The council's voting on that proposal from Heartland Agribusiness. Might be your best option, considering." His eyes flicked toward the bank letter, visible on her kitchen table through the screen door. Emma's jaw tightened. "I'm not selling to some corporation that'll strip the land and move on. This farm has survived worse." Sheriff Morgan sighed. "Emma Davis, you've got your daddy's stubborn streak, that's for sure. Just consider all your options, all right? Not many small farms making it these days." After he left, Emma returned to repairing a broken fence post. The physical labor was a welcome distraction from the worry that had become her constant companion. As the sun began to set, dark clouds gathered on the horizon. The forecast hadn't mentioned rain, but Emma knew the land's moods better than any meteorologist. A storm was coming. The rain arrived with shocking force just after midnight, hammering the tin roof of the farmhouse and illuminating the fields with flashes of lightning. Emma had just drifted off to sleep when a particularly violent crack of thunder rattled the windows. Moments later, a strange sound caught her attention. Metal scraping on asphalt, followed by a dull thud. Emma grabbed her father's old flashlight and raincoat, stepping out onto the porch as lightning split the sky once more. In that brief illumination, she saw it. Something had happened on the county road that ran along the edge of her property. Without hesitation, she climbed into her weathered pickup truck and drove toward the scene. The headlights revealed a motorcycle, mangled and smoking, lying in the ditch. A few yards away, a dark figure lay motionless on the ground. Emma's heart pounded as she approached, rain plastering her hair to her face. The man was massive, dressed in black leather covered with patches. Even unconscious, there was something intimidating about him. A large patch on his back read "Hell's Angels." Blood flowed freely from a gash on his forehead, and his leg was bent at an unnatural angle. Emma hesitated only a moment. "Lord help me," she muttered, kneeling beside him to check for a pulse. It was there. Weak, but steady. The man groaned as she gently turned his head to examine the wound. She remembered her grandmother's voice. "Emma Jean, we help those who need helping. Don't matter who they are or where they come from. That's what makes us who we are." It took all her strength to half drag, half carry the unconscious biker to her truck. His phone fell from his pocket, the screen cracked but still lighting up with notifications. 23 missed calls from brothers. As Emma drove back to the farmhouse, rain pounding on the roof of the truck, lightning illuminated the stranger's face. Despite the intimidating leather and tattoos, in unconsciousness, he looked vulnerable. "Human. Just hold on," she told him, though he couldn't hear her. "I've got you." By dawn, Emma had managed to clean and bandage the man's head wound using her grandmother's salves. His leg was definitely broken, but she'd done her best to set and splint it using techniques she'd learned from her father. The biker remained unconscious on her couch, his massive frame making the furniture seem small. When he finally stirred around noon, Emma was ready with a glass of water and home-brewed willow bark tea for the pain. His eyes, a startling clear blue, flew open in confusion and immediate suspicion. "Where am I? Who are you?" he demanded, wincing as he tried to sit up. "I'm Emma Davis. You're on my farm. Found you and your bike in a ditch during the storm." She offered the water. "You've got a nasty cut and a broken leg. Should really get you to a hospital." The man stared at her for a long moment before accepting the water. "Jake," he finally said. "Jake Mercer." His eyes darted around the room, taking in the modest surroundings. "My phone?" Emma handed it to him. "It's been going off all morning." Jake cursed under his breath as he scrolled through the messages. "I need to make a call. Privately." While Jake made his call from the living room, Emma busied herself in the kitchen, trying not to eavesdrop but catching snippets anyway. Ambushed, ledgers, proof. When she returned with a simple lunch of ham sandwiches, Jake was sitting up, pain evident in the lines of his face but his expression guarded. "I appreciate the help, but I should go," he said, though it was obvious he couldn't stand on his own. "With that leg, you wouldn't make it to the end of the driveway." Emma placed the plate beside him. "Hospital's an hour away, but I can take you tomorrow if the swelling goes down." Jake studied her. "Most people see the patches and run the other way. Why are you helping me?" Emma met his gaze steadily. "My grandma taught me to judge people by their actions, not their appearance. So far, you haven't done anything to make me regret helping you." Their conversation was interrupted by the sound of tires on gravel. Emma peered out the window and sighed. "It's Sheriff Morgan." Jake's body tensed. "I'm not exactly popular with law enforcement. Just let me handle it," Emma said, moving to the door. Sheriff Morgan's eyes narrowed when she stepped onto the porch, closing the door behind her. "Emma? Got a report of a motorcycle accident last night. Abandoned bike on County Road 8 by your property." "That so?" Emma replied, her face carefully neutral. "Don't play dumb. Billy Peterson saw your truck out there last night." The sheriff lowered his voice. "There's word from 2 counties over about Hell's Angels activity. You harboring someone, Emma?" "I found a man hurt in the storm. He's resting inside with a broken leg. That a crime now, helping someone injured?" Sheriff Morgan removed his hat, rubbing his forehead in frustration. "Emma, your daddy was my friend. I promised him I'd look out for you. These aren't the kind of people you want to get mixed up with." "I appreciate the concern, but I'll be fine. He'll be gone tomorrow." As the sheriff reluctantly left, Emma leaned against the door frame, exhaustion washing over her. When she returned inside, Jake was watching her intently. "That was decent of you," he said quietly. Emma shrugged. "Like I said, you haven't given me reason not to help." Over the next several hours, as Emma tended to Jake's injuries and brought him food, a cautious conversation developed between them. She learned he had been with the motorcycle club for 15 years, rising to vice president. He carefully avoided details about why he was on a remote Nebraska road in the middle of a storm. As evening approached, Emma noticed Jake becoming increasingly agitated, checking his phone frequently. When she returned from evening chores, she found him attempting to stand. "What are you doing?" she demanded. "You'll make that leg worse." "I need to leave," Jake insisted. "Being here puts you in danger." Before Emma could respond, headlights swept across the front window. Her heart sank when she recognized Mr. Peterson's car, the bank manager. "Stay here and stay quiet," she whispered to Jake, helping him back to the couch. Peterson's smile didn't reach his eyes as Emma met him on the porch. "Miss Davis, I thought I'd stop by personally to remind you about our appointment tomorrow. The foreclosure paperwork requires your signature." "I haven't forgotten," Emma replied stiffly. "I understand this is difficult," Peterson continued, though his tone suggested otherwise. "But Heartland Agribusiness has made a very generous offer considering the circumstances. Sometimes we have to accept when it's time to move on." After he left, Emma returned inside to find Jake watching her with new interest. "Foreclosure?" he asked. Emma hadn't intended to share her troubles with a stranger, but something in his direct gaze broke through her reserve. She found herself explaining the drought years, the mounting debts, her refusal to sell to the corporation that had been buying up failing farms throughout the county. "This land is all I have left of them," she concluded simply, the emotion in those few words conveying everything about her connection to the farm. Jake was quiet for a long moment. That bank manager, Peterson, he seemed familiar somehow. Before he could elaborate, Jake's phone rang. His expression darkened as he answered. After a tense conversation, he turned to Emma with urgency in his eyes. "I need to get to the county hospital, tonight." "Why the sudden rush? Your leg?" "There are some things I need to check on. It's important." His intense gaze met hers. "I wouldn't ask if it wasn't necessary." Emma studied him, weighing her options. Finally, she nodded. "Let me get my truck keys." The county hospital's emergency room was surprisingly busy for a weeknight. Emma helped Jake through the entrance, his arm heavy across her shoulders as he hobbled beside her, refusing a wheelchair. "We need to get to the administrative offices," Jake murmured, his eyes scanning the corridor cautiously. "Those would be closed at this hour," Emma whispered back, confused. "Trust me," Jake insisted. As they moved through the hospital, Jake grew increasingly tense. Near the elevators, he suddenly pulled Emma into an alcove, his body shielding hers as two men in hospital scrubs walked past. "Friends of yours?" Emma asked once they'd passed. "The opposite," Jake replied grimly. "Those patches on my jacket? They come with enemies." They made it to the administrative wing undetected. Jake produced a small tool from his boot and made quick work of the lock on a door labeled Financial Services. "This is breaking and entering," Emma hissed, but followed him inside anyway. Jake went straight to a filing cabinet, rifling through folders with surprising purpose. "Just as I thought," he muttered, holding up a document. "Your bank manager Peterson is on the hospital board. And look who else, the CEO of Heartland Agribusiness." Before Emma could process this information, voices approached in the hallway. They ducked behind a desk just as the door opened. Through the crack beneath the desk, Emma recognized Peterson's expensive shoes entering alongside heavier boots. "The club knows something's missing," a gruff voice was saying. "Their VP was tracking the money when he had his accident." "And you're sure he's taken care of?" Peterson's voice replied. "He went off the road in the storm. No way he survived with those injuries." Emma felt Jake tense beside her. She placed a steadying hand on his arm. "Good," Peterson continued. "With their books missing and their VP gone, there's nothing connecting us to the money. We can move forward with the land acquisitions, including that Davis farm tomorrow. When the men finally left, Emma and Jake emerged from hiding, Emma's mind reeling. They're working together? The bank, the hospital, the corporation buying the farms? Money laundering, Jake explained grimly. Using the land purchases. I've been tracking funds missing from the club for months, money that was supposed to go to our Veterans Support Fund. The trail led here. So your accident wasn't an accident. They were nearly to the exit when the two men in scrubs appeared again, this time with unmistakable recognition in their eyes as they spotted Jake. Run, Jake urged Emma, but she stood her ground beside him. Well, look who's still breathing. One of the men sneered, reaching into his jacket. I'm not alone, Jake warned as the men advanced. He placed himself in front of Emma protectively. The confrontation spilled into the parking lot, where 3 more men waited. Emma's heart pounded as she realized they were badly outnumbered. One of the men grabbed her arm roughly. Let her go, Jake growled. She has nothing to do with this. She does now, the man replied coldly. Emma acted instinctively, driving her elbow backward as her father had taught her for protection on the farm. The man grunted in pain, loosening his grip enough for her to break free. Jake had managed to retrieve his phone and pressed it to his ear. We're at County General, 5 of them. Yes, I have the proof and a witness. He glanced at Emma. Hurry. What followed was the longest 20 minutes of Emma's life, as Jake, despite his injured leg, positioned them strategically between parked cars, keeping their attackers at bay with nothing but his imposing presence and tactical movements. Emma stayed close, helping support his weight when needed, her eyes never leaving the threat circling them. The distant rumble of motorcycles broke the tense standoff. The men exchanged nervous glances as the sound grew louder. Moments later, a dozen motorcycles roared into the parking lot, their riders forming a protective circle around Emma and Jake. A tall, gray-bearded man dismounted, his leather jacket bearing the president's patch. Jake, good to see you breathing. Got the evidence, Chief, Jake replied, handing over the documents. And these gentlemen were just explaining their involvement. As the club members surrounded Peterson's associates, Emma watched in astonishment. This was not the mindless violence she had expected, but disciplined, organized action. The lady? Chief asked, nodding toward Emma. She saved my life, Jake said simply, and her farm's one of their targets. Chief approached Emma and extended his hand. Then we owe you a debt, ma'am. The sun was just beginning to rise as they returned to Emma's farm, Jake riding in the truck with her while the motorcycle club followed. Emma's hands gripped the steering wheel tightly as she processed everything that had happened. Are you sure about this? She asked for the 3rd time. Jake nodded. Peterson and his friends will be busy with the police for quite some time, but some of their associates might not appreciate us interfering with their operation. His eyes met hers. The club will make sure you're safe. As they crested the final hill, Emma gasped. The road leading to her farmhouse was lined with motorcycles, dozens more than had been at the hospital. At least 100 bikers stood waiting on her property. What is this? She whispered. Reinforcements, Jake replied with a small smile. Word travels fast in the club when one of our own is targeted, or when someone helps one of our own. They pulled up to the farmhouse, where Sheriff Morgan was already waiting, his cruiser parked alongside the motorcycles. His expression was a mixture of concern and bewilderment. Emma Davis, what have you gotten yourself into? He asked as she approached. Before she could answer, Chief stepped forward. Sheriff, I believe we have some information your department will find interesting regarding Mr. Peterson at the bank and his creative accounting practices. Sheriff Morgan's eyebrows rose as he was handed the documents from the hospital. This would explain a lot of strange property deals lately. While they spoke, club members had begun setting up a perimeter around the farm. Others were examining the buildings and grounds with professional interest. Emma watched in astonishment as her property was transformed into what resembled a military operation. "They're veterans, most of them," Jake explained, noticing her expression as he hobbled up beside her on a proper crutch someone had provided. Before they were Hell's Angels. Throughout the morning, Emma watched as the sheriff made calls and took statements. Peterson and his associates had been detained based on the evidence. The foreclosure proceedings against her farm were immediately suspended pending investigation. By afternoon, the crowd of bikers had transformed from a security detail to something resembling a barn raising. Men in leather jackets were repairing her fence, examining her tractor, and even tending to her animals with surprising gentleness. "Your north field has irrigation problems," one burly biker informed her. "We can fix that. Used to be a hydraulic engineer before the service." Chief approached Emma as she stood watching, still processing the surreal scene. "Jake tells me this land has been in your family for generations." Emma nodded. "4 generations. It's all I have left of them." "Family is important," Chief agreed. "Blood family, chosen family." He gestured to the bikers working around the farm. "Most of us found our family after coming back from places that changed us. Places that made it hard to fit back in the world we left behind." Jake joined them, moving more comfortably on his crutch. "The club's Veterans Fund, the one they were stealing from, it helps members and other vets transition back to civilian life. Provides work, purpose." Chief looked over the farm thoughtfully. "This land could use some regular attention from people who need purpose. Was that if you'd be open to it?" 3 months later, Emma stood on her porch, coffee mug in hand, watching the sunrise over fields that hadn't looked this good in years. The irrigation system worked perfectly now. New fencing gleamed in the morning light. The barn roof had been replaced, and her small herd had grown with 2 new heifers. The rumble of motorcycles in the distance brought a smile to her face rather than fear. A few moments later, Jake pulled up on a new bike, his leg fully healed. Behind him rode 3 other club members, regular visitors now. "Morning, farmer," Jake called as he dismounted. In the months since his accident, he had become a fixture at the Davis farm, initially overseeing the club's work there, and eventually becoming Emma's right hand in operations. "Morning, biker," she replied with a smile, handing him a mug of coffee as he climbed the porch steps. "Ready for harvest planning?" Inside, the kitchen table was covered with farm ledgers and plans. The Davis family farm had become the first official outpost of the Hells Angels Veterans Agricultural Program, a place where club members with PTSD or other adjustment difficulties could come to work, heal, and reconnect with purpose. Emma provided housing in the renovated bunkhouse, her grandmother's healing knowledge, and farming expertise. The club provided labor, technical skills, and protection. Sheriff Morgan's cruiser pulled up as Emma and Jake were discussing crop rotation. The sheriff had become a regular visitor too, his initial wariness of the bikers gradually replaced by cautious respect. "Brought those seed catalogs you asked about?" he said, handing Emma a stack of magazines. "And thought you'd want to know. Peterson took a plea deal. He's giving up names all the way to the top of Heartland agribusiness. None of those farms will be pressured to sell now." After the sheriff left, Emma and Jake walked the fields together, checking on the winter wheat. Several bikers worked nearby, calling out greetings as they passed. "Did you ever imagine this?" Jake asked, gesturing to the scene. Leather-clad bikers working alongside local farmhands who had initially been terrified of them, but now joked and worked in easy camaraderie. Emma shook her head. "Not in a million years." She paused, looking out over the land that had been her family's legacy. "My grandmother used to say that healing comes from unexpected places if you're brave enough to let it in." In the distance, a group of veterans from the local VA hospital was arriving for their weekly therapy session at the farm, another new program that had grown organically from the partnership. Emma's knowledge of herbal remedies had found new appreciation among those struggling with the side effects of multiple medications. Chief says the second farm property closes next month, Jake mentioned as they continued walking. The Mitchell place, it'll be another veteran outpost. Emma nodded. I'll help get them set up. She had become an advisor to the club's expanding agricultural program, her simple farming knowledge now valued as much as her kindness had been that stormy night. As the sun rose higher, Emma paused to watch a young veteran carefully planting herb seedlings in the garden her grandmother had started decades ago. His hands, which had been shaking when he arrived 2 weeks earlier, moved with steady purpose now. Jake followed her gaze. You saved more than just my life that night, you know? Emma smiled, thinking of the foreclosure notice that had once seemed like the end of everything. I think maybe we saved each other. In the fields of the Davis farm, Leather and Denham worked side by side under the Nebraska sun, an unlikely family formed by simple kindness and unexpected courage, growing something new from what almost had been lost. Love this story? Hit that like button and subscribe to In the Heartlight for more inspiring tales of everyday heroes. And don't forget to check out the videos currently on your screen. Thank you for watching. See you in the next video.